This is a platform where we share stories of love, loss, and the twists and turns that life can bring. Please subscribe to support us and stay tuned for more captivating chronicles. Today, I find myself caught up in an intense story, a saga of love, trust, doubt, and ultimately confrontation. The behavior of my wife has taken an unusual turn recently, and I'm trying to make sense of it all. First, a bit of context. I work night shifts while my wife has a day job in a male-dominated field. She's been with her job for a few years now, and it's important to note that the opportunity for workplace relationships didn't exist in the past. We're both in our 40s and have been together since we were 17 years old. What's been bothering me is her newfound habit of spending more time with her female coworkers after work. She used to be quite responsible and rarely got carried away in social situations, so this change has caught my attention. There were even a couple of instances where she didn't come home until the morning, having indulged in drinks with her colleagues. Now here's the most recent event that has left me puzzled. Last night, I wasn't scheduled to work, so I was in bed at a normal hour. I was awakened at 3 a.m. by the glow of her cell phone screen in bed. She wasn't being secretive with her screen, but it struck me as unusual. When I asked her about it, she mentioned that she was going for a walk with her coworkers before her 8 a.m. shift as a diesel mechanic. What puzzled me further was that she seemed more cleaned up than expected for a simple walk or work. She left the house at around 4 a.m., indicating that she would likely be at her friend's place by 4:30 a.m. These recent events have left me feeling concerned and confused. I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but I believe it's time for an open and honest conversation with my wife to understand what's going on. Our relationship has always thrived on communication, and I hope we can address any issues together. The dark, drizzly, and chilly Arizona weather certainly adds another layer of intrigue to the situation. I found it peculiar when I texted her around 5 a.m. to request the truck for a trip to the dump, and she didn't respond promptly. It was especially odd since our communication had generally been reliable. About 15 minutes later, I decided to call her to check on the truck's availability. She told me that they were still out on their walk, but suggested I come to her workplace once she arrived to get it. While that might seem like a good opportunity to see her, the thought did cross my mind that her hair being damp could indicate she had taken a second shower. It's essential to remember that people have different habits and reasons for their actions. And it's easy to misinterpret situations, especially when our minds are racing with questions. Given my own admission that my brain works differently when it comes to social cues, I do wonder if I might be overthinking this. Nonetheless, it's still essential to address any concerns and seek clarity through open communication. I'm truly sorry for the situation I found myself in. After noticing the strange behavior and feeling a growing sense of doubt, I decided to confront my wife by asking to see her phone. To avoid any misinterpretations or accusations, I also handed her my own phone along with the password, making it clear that I had nothing to hide. As I went through her messages, I couldn't help but notice that the one conversation I was most interested in was conveniently missing. This raised more concerns. I decided to type in the phone number associated with this mysterious contact. And to my surprise, her boyfriend's name popped up. I handed the phone back to her and asked to see the text with him. Her reaction was incredulous, as if she couldn't believe what I was asking. At this point, I felt compelled to share some of what I knew. I mentioned that I had seen texts between her and this person before she left home that day and after she returned. I also expressed my awareness of her being with him during a time when she was supposedly in Vegas. In response, she tried to act as if she had no idea why our phone carrier would have several pages of texting records between her and this person. Instead of engaging in a meaningful conversation or addressing my concerns, she simply stormed off upstairs and retreated to the bed. Feeling overwhelmed and hurt by the lack of communication and transparency, I made the difficult decision to pack a bag and leave. I needed some time and space to process everything that had happened and figure out how to move forward. I appreciate the advice I received from a police investigator about how to handle this confrontation. His insights were invaluable, particularly in cases where the guilty party might not readily admit to their actions. The investigator stressed that getting a confession, especially for lesser offenses than homicide, is rare. Even if they do confess, they often withhold crucial information. So the goal was to gather as much information as possible without revealing the extent of my own knowledge. Starting the conversation with, "I know more than you think I know," was a crucial tip. It was a way to encourage honesty without tipping my hand. This was like a high-stakes poker game where showing my cards too early would be a mistake. The investigator also cautioned that searching her phone might yield nothing, as the guilty often hide or delete evidence in anticipation of a confrontation. What I needed to prove was the absence of text records and call logs indicating gaps in communication. These gaps often corresponded with the times when they were together. So I asked for her phone as expected. And she countered. Concerned about what I might find on her phone than going through mine. She barely scrolled through my texts and didn't even venture into my pictures, which was interesting. Then I went to her phone and typed in the number associated with the person I was concerned about. When I found no messages, I went back to his contact and showed her the lack of texts. She initially claimed they didn't talk much, but when confronted with the evidence of over 900 texts just last month, she admitted to deleting them, revealing a partial truth that they were discussing a divorce, but she wasn't ready to tell me yet. Confrontations like these are emotionally charged and challenging, and I had to rely on the investigator's guidance to navigate through it. I've learned a lot from this experience, especially when it comes to how the guilty tend to react during confrontations. It's true. They often fear discovery and try to dodge and deflect. Expecting them to share information about their whereabouts without providing many details is a common occurrence. One thing that struck me is how they already anticipate the confrontation, which leads them to plan their responses carefully. They might try to put themselves in the shoes of an innocent person, thinking about how someone without guilt would handle the situation. This includes even light attention-seeking behaviors to divert the focus. I recall that my adult daughter called my wife first and accused her before talking to me about the confrontation. Looking back, it's clear that this was an attempt to control the conversation and divert attention. I should have probed further into why our daughter had those suspicions and asked for specific details. An innocent person, in contrast, would welcome the opportunity to provide unsolicited explanations in detail because they have a clean conscience. Thinking about how an innocent person would handle the confrontation, they would likely be annoyed, but ultimately cooperative when it comes to surrendering their phone. They'd respect the minor level of personal privacy that still exists and wouldn't put up much of a fight. Confusion would be more their response than anything else because they wouldn't have anything to hide or deceive about. They wouldn't need to rehearse their responses because they'd simply be telling the truth. The best lies often contain a kernel of truth within them. In my wife's case, she claimed she spent the day at a tattoo shop, supposedly getting sketches done. However, her story had some notable gaps. She didn't come home with any sketches, didn't take pictures of them, and had very few details to share about the experience. Instead, she showed me online pictures of what she supposedly wanted. Her timeline also raised questions. Her appointment was at 1 p.m., but she left the house at 11:30 a.m., which would have given her plenty of time for a 45-minute drive. Yet, she didn't return until around 6 p.m. This timeline discrepancy made me believe that she might have made an unscheduled stop before going to the tattoo parlor, possibly visiting his house. It's possible they went together, obtained an appointment card as a future alibi, spent some time together, and then returned home later. On the day of the confrontation, she mentioned that traffic was terrible, but there were no specific details about the cause of the traffic jam. Like a notable accident. She also mentioned a visit to Home Depot in search of rings for a lifting strap, but returned empty-handed. These errands seemed vague and left me with more questions. It's clear that the investigator's guidance has been invaluable in understanding these nuances of behavior during a confrontation. While I can't recall all the details he shared, I'm doing my best to piece together the puzzle and find the truth. I've been trying my best to navigate this incredibly complex situation. It's clear to me that my anger issues played a significant role in driving her away, and I've been actively working on addressing them. While she hasn't openly admitted to the affair, I've chosen to forgive, recognizing my own role in this mess. Recently, she mentioned that there's no hope for us to reconcile, and she proposed the idea of cohabitating for the sake of the kids. At first, I held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to rebuild what was broken. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this cohabitation offer might be more of a compromise out of fear rather than a genuine attempt at reconciliation. In response, I offered her a divorce, believing that if that's what she truly wanted, it would be better for both of us to move on. Strangely, she hasn't mentioned it since. And I wondered if maybe this meant she wasn't entirely sure about the direction she wanted to take. Perhaps there was a glimmer of hope or a shift in her feelings. We even had a dinner outing with the kids recently. And during that time, she seemed pleasant and conversational, even looking at me while talking. I allowed myself to believe that maybe the ice around her heart was beginning to melt. However, on the way home, she took a subtle jab at me, a reminder that her love for me had eroded. This morning, she was gone, and I knew where she had gone unbeknownst to her. I had learned of his whereabouts and had previously taken photos of her truck near his place. For some reason, I felt compelled to gauge her emotions, so I went there. Her truck was parked nearby, and I was fairly certain she was inside. I decided to text her about household supplies just to see if she would respond. After a while, I saw his truck leaving, followed by her truck backing out and leaving with him. Curiosity got the better of me, and I went to her door hoping for some answers. No one answered the doorbell. So I texted her about an email. She claimed she hadn't seen it, so I explained what it was about. She said we'd talk when she got back and mentioned she was at Costco. This roller coaster of emotions and uncertainty has been incredibly taxing, and I'm trying to navigate it as best I can. The situation is complicated, and I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm determined to find some clarity and resolution. I told her that I didn't believe her estimating that she was only about 45 minutes away, and she responded with a picture of the Costco building, trying to paint a cover story. It was clear that she was fabricating an excuse. I insisted that she send a picture of her truck if she wanted me to believe her. She replied that she honestly didn't care. In response, I sent a message acknowledging her intentions, saying that I knew she might be trying to spare me for more pain or perhaps fearing my reaction. I also apologized for my past behavior, recognizing that my anger hadn't made things any easier. I emphasized that at this point, the lies hurt more than the truth. She sent me a selfie of herself inside Costco, but I haven't responded yet. It's a situation that's leaving me feeling deeply conflicted. On one hand, I've walked out on her and the kids in the past, and I don't want to repeat that pattern. On the other hand, I'm reaching a point where I feel ready to move on. But staying would mean living with someone I still love who is either protecting me from the truth or afraid of how I'll react. None of this feels healthy, and I'm searching for a way to find resolution and clarity in this complex situation. After my therapist convinced me not to make any hasty decisions while my emotions were running high, I decided to take his advice and wait. The wife and I are cohabitating for the sake of the kids. Call me a sap, but I couldn't bear the thought of leaving them without a stable home. It's been incredibly frustrating to know that she's out with this other guy while I'm essentially paying for a roof over her head. She even has a separate group chat with the kids where she tells them stories about her late-night escapades, like going out for drinks at 4 a.m. when she has to be at work soon. My youngest, who's high-functioning autistic, often fact-checks her stories like when the bars are open and catches her and lies. She can lie to me all she wants, but it's starting to affect our kids, and that's not okay. Luckily, after a few good nights of sleep, I've stopped losing sleep over her actions. I had that lawyer consultation, and it shed some light on my options. According to the lawyer, with equal time for the kids, child support would only be around $40 a month. The issue of the family home came up, and she doesn't want to sell it. She can't buy me out, nor can she afford it on her own. The lawyer advised that if I want to sell the house, it will be sold. I'm starting to realize I might have some leverage here. I've saved up more than her, and some of my investments, like the 401k in company stock, are still in uncertainty. The lawyer suggested that using the house as leverage could protect those assets. I could agree to continue paying half of the house expenses until kids are grown in 5 years, and in return negotiate for half of the future equity. Essentially, it could become a real estate transaction, protecting my savings. On a personal note, I tried to reconcile with my wife recently attempting the so-called pick-me dance. It's been a roller coaster of emotions and decisions, and I'm trying to make the best choices for myself and the kids amidst all this turmoil. About 2 weeks ago, I reached a breaking point. I came home from work unable to function, hoping against hope that her truck wouldn't be there. I prayed that God would somehow put a little love in her heart for me, even though I knew deep down that our relationship had soured. I tried to talk to her, but it didn't work. I felt utterly pathetic and lost. It felt like God wasn't answering my prayers. Fast forward to last Sunday. I had nowhere to go. So I decided to make myself scarce at home, allowing her to see the kids without me around. She bought them pizza before leaving again, leaving me sitting in my car, reading random stuff online. I don't know why, but I downloaded Tinder. I wasn't looking for a hookup. I was just aimlessly scrolling through profiles, swiping left on nearly everything. I talked to a few people, but nothing really clicked. Then after work the next morning, I stumbled upon a profile and decided to swipe right, not really knowing why. To my surprise, it was an instant match. She messaged me with a simple, "Hello, handsome." It couldn't have come at a better time. Her kindness and interest in me, even from a distance, meant the world. We started talking and things seemed to be going well. We eventually set up a date for Tuesday night. We had a couple of drinks and enjoyed each other's company. Because I didn't want to start anything on a false note. She too had been through her own share of hardships, including infidelity and divorce. It felt good to connect with someone who understood my pain. As the evening came to an end, I walked her to her car and we shared a kiss. It was a moment of vulnerability and connection that I hadn't felt in a long time. I couldn't help but think about my situation. My wife had ended our marriage and now all we had was a piece of paper. This new connection, though, gave me a glimmer of hope for the future. Thinking about this woman and the possibility of a new beginning has been incredibly calming for my restless mind. Maybe it's not about God answering my prayers in the way I expected, but rather, it's about Him sending someone to show me that I can be valued, appreciated by someone else. My hope for a brighter future has been rekindled. Whether this new relationship becomes something more or remains a passing moment, I'm grateful for the renewed sense of hope it has brought into my life. I'm grateful for the understanding and support I've received during challenging time. While it may seem like things are moving quickly, the truth is that my marriage had been in trouble for years. I had contemplated divorce for a long time, but couldn't bring myself to take action. Nor did I actively work to save the marriage. My wife's affair became the final catalyst for ending it. And looking back, maybe it needed to happen because neither of us was truly happy and neither of us was willing to initiate the end. Reflecting on it now, I wonder if I would have acted differently if the situation were reversed. I've always been cautious about my interactions with other women, fearing that I might be a risk in some way. That distance I kept may have contributed to the distance that grew between my wife and me over the years. The happy memories of my wife now feel distant, almost like the memories of someone who has been terminally ill and has passed away. In such situations, you grieve the loss as soon as it happens, but acceptance comes more quickly because you've been aware of the inevitability of it. It's a complex mix of emotions, and I'm trying to navigate it as best as I can. I took a big step today by paying the retainer to get the divorce process started. It's been a tough journey, and it looks like cohabitation is coming to an end soon. My oldest son, who is 23 years old, and I have decided to become roommates in a new place. He's not on speaking terms with his mom right now due to her infidelity. One of the big hurdles ahead is selling the house. I'm looking to get my equity out of it because my soon-to-be ex-wife can't afford the mortgage payments and the divorce settlement won't give her enough to buy me out. It did sting to pay that $2,500 retainer, but I believe it's worth it. Day trading has been a hobby of mine, and I'm pretty good at it. With more financial flexibility, I can execute larger trades. As for personal plans, I've always had my eye on a 1979 Fiat Spider convertible. I could never justify it as a responsible, married man, but now I don't have to. Once this divorce is all said and done, I'm going to fulfill that dream and cruise around in a car I've wanted for a long time. I even hope the vanity plate Superman is available when I get the car. Walking out of the lawyer's office today, I couldn't help but hear the lyrics. Damn, it feels good to be a gangster in my head. I do wonder how my soon-to-be wife will react when she gets served and sees that I'm pushing for the sale of the house. It's ironic because if we do sell, we would both have enough money to get our own homes, and she could move in with her partner while I can pursue my own path. My wife has been trying to reach out to me with casual texts, but I've been mostly ignoring or gray-rocking her attempts. She mentioned that Home Depot has evaporative coolers in stock, and we had talked about getting one during the winter when they're on sale. She also asked when I was coming home, but we're currently cohabitating in separate rooms, and our interactions are minimal. Recently, she texted me to let me know that she's planning to turn in her 2019 Ram truck with a $730 payment. This decision means that our oldest child will no longer be able to use the old paid-off car with 220,000 miles on it. I have to admit that it feels somewhat satisfying to see her having to make sacrifices for her actions. I had a long talk with my sister about the situation, and she shared some interesting insights. According to her, the man my wife is with has had 4 failed marriages and seems to have a pattern of using up women's resources before moving on. While it might be hard to believe, my sister thinks that this man could motivate my wife to settle the divorce quickly. I also mentioned to my sister that I hope my wife and this man don't break up until after I have the divorce papers in hand and have moved on. I'm working on a plan, and their relationship status could impact the divorce proceedings. Regarding the house and finances, my wife's plan to return the truck is related to her intention to refinance the house. It seems that she can't afford a cash-out refinance to pay off the truck, while still meeting the new loan requirements. This aligns with my plan, as I intended to move out and didn't want to continue paying half of the bills while she pursued her own interests. I've told her that my plan was for her to keep the house, but I needed to be bought out. I have other liquid assets, and I've made it clear that she would need to relinquish any claim to those assets in order to buy me out. Even though she might still come up short financially, the amount, while significant, is relatively trivial to me, as I see it as a potential cost for a quick exit from this situation. I want to get this hammered out while I'm still in agreement with her. Time and distance have a way of making people less inclined to appreciate equitable splits. She wasn't very happy about not receiving any portion of the liquid assets, but I assured her that she would have 100% ownership of the home and could do it as she pleases with it. This includes keeping it until the kids are all grown, or even allowing her boyfriend to move in. I still have my guard up. Tomorrow, I'm getting my new house and signing affidavits with my lawyer. If you've been following my story, you know that my soon-to-be ex-wife of 19 years chose to have an exit affair, which I discovered back in March. Initially, I went through the pick-meat phase, but after counseling, I realized that my life would be better without her. I found a rental house within walking distance of our current home so that our children, who are 13 and 14 years old, both boys, can come and go as they please. I even changed my work shifts to make it easier for me to get them to and from school. Tomorrow, I'll be getting the keys and moving into the new house. I've already arranged for the utilities to be turned on. Fortunately, I can afford to start over because I've been the financially stable one in the relationship. Additionally, I have a meeting scheduled with my lawyer to sign the affidavits for the divorce paperwork. My soon-to-be wife and I have an agreement via email, and the lawyer will structure the paperwork accordingly. Hopefully, we'll have everything signed and we'll just have to wait out the mandatory waiting period. I might be getting a little less than half, but if my sanity comes at a higher price, so be it. I also have some future unrealized restricted stock units from my job that have yet to vest, and the agreement includes her forfeiting any future claim to them. If I continue to stay at my current job, those shares will be worth a lot. I see no reason to leave the company I'm with, as they have been incredibly supportive, offering a 30-day leave of absence, including short-term disability. This whole experience has actually made me more loyal to my employer. Since she has a good job that pays well above the poverty line, I won't have to pay spousal maintenance. Additionally, with equal time spent with the children and being the one responsible for covering their health, dental, and vision insurance, I only have to pay $42 a month for child support, and we're currently negotiating to reduce that even further. I believe that in 5 years, when the children are fully grown, I'll have saved enough money to possibly retire abroad at the age of 47 instead of working here in the US until I'm 70. As a married man, I felt financially trapped, always spending money on large houses and other material possessions that I didn't truly desire. You could say that living on the other side of the planet from her would be fringe benefit in itself. As far as relationships go, she broke my heart, but she isn't taking that heart from me. I believe there's a girl out there somewhere whom I will entrust it to, even if it means being vulnerable again. Love and hope are the greatest things, and you should never let a cheating spouse take those things away from you. Around here, though, we don't dwell on the past for very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and pursuing new opportunities. Curiosity continues to lead us down new paths. I'm crossing things off my bucket list and getting ready to travel abroad in just a few hours. I've taken the entire month of July off from work. And I'm heading to Thailand. I believe that a key aspect of being single again is rediscovering the part of yourself that you may have neglected. Right now, I'm actively adding to my list of life experiences. When my soon-to-be wife texts me, I respond on my own terms, sometimes not for days. The divorce is still in the process of being worked out. With the financials and assets all sorted, we just need to finalize the custody and child support arrangements. My lawyer advised against her proposal, which he found ridiculous and unlikely to be entertained by any judge. So instead of amending it, we're starting with our own proposal, which begins with the idea that the kids are old enough to decide for themselves. Plus, I've got a house within walking distance of hers. Interestingly, she moved her new partner in right after I moved out. But it doesn't faze me. In fact, it's almost comical how cliché it all seems. As for the upcoming trip, there is indeed a girl involved. She's aware of my circumstances, and we talk online all the time. When I lose sleep at night, it's not because of a cheater who did me wrong. It's because of the 14-hour time difference between myself and this Thai girl. My advice to those who are still struggling is simple. Keep moving forward. I got a divorce, and I'm moving forward with my life. To make a long story short, my divorce is now final. I left her after she had an exit affair. And while the custody and support aspects of the divorce didn't go exactly as I had hoped, I knew that the best case scenario was just that, the best case scenario. One positive outcome was that I convinced her to agree to put half of the child support into 529 college savings plans for our teenage boys. Since they are mostly grown now with few major milestones left, we settled on an alternate weekend custody schedule. This means that she has to handle transportation to and from school, and it allowed me to take on a travel position at work, which gives me about 15 hours of overtime each week with meals paid for. Overtime doesn't factor into child support calculations here. I also updated my insurance at work and removed her from the policy, saving me more money. See, at work might end up costing her more than what she receives in child support. To add to it, I found out she has breast lumps. It's almost like karma for her actions with another man. I also updated my life insurance plan so that she doesn't benefit from them. Recently, I saw her in person when I gave her some money for one of the boys' medical needs, but I wasn't fazed by it. I didn't feel much of anything. I'm out here living my best life now, and I don't need any dark clouds to mess that up. For those of you who are just beginning this journey through a difficult time, keep on moving forward. You don't want to let the difficulties catch you resting. I had sleepless days. I begged for her back early on, and I had to take leave from work. But all I can say is you will survive. Keep on keeping on. Karma seems to be rolling the dice now, and I tend to believe that justice eventually catches up with people, leading them to the outcomes they deserve. Recently, I found out that she got fired from her job, and it's somewhat fitting considering that where she met her affair partner. Supposedly, she was being harassed by a coworker, reported it, and ended up losing her job. They might have suspected her of being the harasser, especially since she had already ruined 2 marriages. If her partner was also married when they had an affair with a coworker in the past, that history might not work in her favor if this escalates to a lawsuit. Now she's broke and jobless, burdened with heavy vehicle debt, and she has to sell the house she intended to keep. Moving is a challenge for her due to her bad back, and her boyfriend is old and might get stuck with the task. The crazy thing is, I know of a good job opportunity that offers better pay and benefits than her old job. Part of me wants to pass on this information, but another part of me just wants to sit back with some popcorn. My therapist told me a long time ago that it's not my responsibility to rescue her, and not to carry the burden of doing so. So extra butter on the popcorn, it is then. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please consider subscribing our channel, as it helps and motivates us to continue our